G'day all you wonderful people, welcome to Adventure Together. Safari Steve here, and Al's asked me to come in to talk to you about the types of animals that you're going to encounter on the Appalachian Trail. Now, where the place is rugged and wild as the Appalachian Mountains, there's no way I could go through everything that you'll find there. So I'm just going to go over some of the animals that you're expecting to see on the Appalachian Trail. And the first big one is bears. Everyone is expecting to see bears. And the bear that you're expecting to see is a black bear. Now, bears are ferocious, mate, but black bears aren't as fearsome as grizzly bears, which you won't see on the Appalachian Trail. But just because black bears aren't as fearsome as grizzly bears doesn't mean you can run over and give them a hug like you can your teddy bear. Most of the time, black bears aren't going to want to kill you, but you want to stay out of the way of them. Be respectful of their space. Some people call black bears the dogs of the trail, but don't try to play fetch with them, mate. That's the wrong thing to do. The second thing that you'll see a lot of on trail, especially up there in Virginia, is white-tailed deer. Now, you might recognize these buggers from that documentary Bambi. Now, you'll find a lot of the time the deer that are around the Appalachian Trail aren't camera shy and they aren't scared of people. That's not the right thing, mate. You don't want to be encouraging them to come near you. They're wild animals. Just try to be respectful of their space, stay out of their way, just like you would the bears, but you don't have to be afraid of them because they haven't got the teeth to be chewing you up. The third thing I'm going to go over are bobcats. Now, you might have heard of bobcats. They're just like regular kits, just like the domestic kit you'll have in your house. And the reason they're just like those domesticated kits is because they would kill you if they had the chance. The fourth thing I'm going to go over are porcupines. Have you heard of a porcupine? They're like an echidna, but bigger. They're like the size of a small dog or something, mate. Now, you don't want to be trying to stroke a porcupine because they got those quills, and then you touch them, they'll get embedded in your hand or wherever you touch them. So don't try to get near a porcupine. Now, the interesting thing about porcupines is they love salt. So wherever a hiker's been sitting and sweating, all of that salt is going to be seeping into where they've been sitting. And those porcupines, mate, they love it. So if you leave your sweaty boots or pack out in a place where a porcupine can get to it, expect them to be nibbled on if there's porcupines in the area. If you see a wooden shutter and there's a lot of bite marks along the edge there, that's because those porcupines have tasted the salt from the hiker sweat where they've been sat on that wood and it's seeped into the wood and they want to chew it away. The fifth thing to talk about are beavers. Now, beavers were hunted almost to extinction back in the day when their fur was used to make hats. Not this hat, but some hats. But now beaver populations are slowly on the rise as they've been employed in the lumberjack industry. You'll see a lot of them in the northeastern states where they're chewing down trees left, right and centre. The next thing I'm going to talk about are snakes. Now, we have a lot of snakes in Australia. Here's a fact for you. The 5 most venomous snakes in the entire world are found in Australia. But another venomous snake that you'll find outside of Australia are those rattlesnakes. And you might see a fair few of them on the Appalachian Trail. Now, personally, I think those rattlesnakes are some of the politest snakes out there because they give you a little warning when they're in the area. You might not hear or see another snake, but a rattlesnake says, "Hey guys, I'm here. Don't come anywhere near because I don't want to interact. I like my own space." So if you hear that little rattle, think, "Oh, that's a polite little snake. I'll just stay where I am and let him go about his business." But there are a whole host of other snakes that you might see on the Appalachian Trail. And one you'll see very commonly is the black rat snake. And you'll see these are long, mate. They are 5 feet, 6 feet long. They are the longest snake in the whole of North America. But here's the thing about them that's fascinating to me. The fact that the black rat snake's not venomous, mate. It grabs its prey and wraps around it. But it's not strong enough to do any damage to a human at all. If it bites you, it may hurt a little bit, like staples going in your hand, and it might give you an infection, but it's not venomous. And if it wraps around your arm, it's not strong enough to do any damage at all to you. But just like bears, that's no reason to get close to it and give it a hug. If you see one, just wait a little while. They'll want to get out of your way as soon as they can. So don't let their size intimidate you. Don't worry if you get too close. Just back off a little bit, give them some room. Another snake you might see on trail are copperheads. Now, these are beautiful snakes with orange eyes and orange scales. They look amazing, mate. And one way to tell if they're in the area is if you can smell cucumbers. They feel under threat. They let off a pungent aroma. And if you could smell cucumbers, it probably means you're way too close to a copperhead. Another snake that you might be lucky enough to see, hopefully you see it before it sees you, is the water moccasin, also known as the cottonmouth. And these things hang around water. So you might see one hanging around, sunbathing on a rock or waiting for a little fish to pass. Another snake that you might see is the eastern hognose. Now what's fascinating about these snakes is the way they defend themselves. When they're first under threat and they feel like they've been backed into a corner, they'll flatten out their neck so they kind of look like a cobra. But if that doesn't scare you off, then they play dead, mate. They'll roll over and pretend they're dead just to get you to leave them alone. So if you see a snake and it faints in front of you, just leave him alone and let him get on with his day. And another snake that you might see is the garter snake. Now these ones are smaller, mate, and they're small and thin, and these ones are harmless. You don't have to worry about them. Most of the time when you see them, you'll be walking along trail and you'll just see something wriggle away real quick. Don't worry about it. These little snakes, they're nothing to worry about. They just want to get out of your way and leave the path open for you. The next thing I'm going to talk about are moose. Now moose look like depressed horses, except they've got massive antlers and they're huge. Now moose are extremely territorial and extremely dangerous. So if one charges at you, you want to get into the trees as densely packed as possible because they won't be able to get at you with those massive antlers. They'll be stuck against the trees, rattling around, trying to get you, and you'll be safe. So just remember that tip because it could save your life. The next thing I want to talk about are birds. And we're going to start off with the bald eagle, mate, the symbol of American freedom. Now you might be lucky enough to see a few bald eagles flying around above you. They are magnificent birds. And another bird that I guarantee you'll see a lot of are turkey vultures. Now these aren't turkeys, mate, they are vultures. And you might recognize them from their starring role in that movie, The Jungle Book. But it's not been easy for the turkey vultures since then, and they've only played minor roles in some Attenborough docos. You'll see most of these out-of-work actors flying around above you, doing circles, looking for prey underneath them. The way to spot them is they have 5 feathers that are spread out like fingers like that. If you look up at the sky and you see the silhouette of a bird with its feathers at the end of its wings spread out like that, you might be able to say, hey, I've identified me a turkey vulture. Now there are hundreds of birds that you'll see out there, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but some of the colourful show-offs that you might see are red cardinals, American robins and blue jays. And to round off this video, we're going to go through a list of all the little small creatures that you might see out there on the Appalachian Trail. You'll definitely see chipmunks and squirrels, mice, you might see rats, you'll see a whole load of insects like flies and mozzies, but no one likes them. But you'll also see beautiful butterflies, you'll see loads of caterpillars, millipedes, centipedes, you'll see loads of frogs and toads, and one of the most colourful things you'll see out there are the eastern newt. The juveniles are orange and they have these little black spots on their back. They're easy to see, but they're only about so big. They are beautiful, but they're slow as hell, mate. So if you see one on the path, try and give it a little nudge off to the side so other people don't come down the trail, ignore it, and then go splat. You don't want any of that. Now, the reason these juveniles are walking around the forest is when they are born, they're born in the water, but then they like to go off like a teenager and do their own thing. But before long, they find themselves turning into their parents, just like a normal teenager, and they head back to the water. So that's it. That's everything I'm going to talk about as far as animals that you're likely to see on the Appalachian Trail. But there are hundreds more, and I couldn't possibly go through them all. But if you've got something that sticks out in your mind that you think people will see on the Appalachian Trail, leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, please leave a like. Please consider subscribing to Al's channel and share this video to anyone that you know that likes camping, hiking, adventure travel, or animals. But that's it from me, Safari Steve, and Al will see you in the next one. I've lost my script.